From the 1816 Year Without a Summer and the 1939 Black Friday Bushfires to the 1918 Cloquet Fire and the 2003 European heatwave, here are the top 7 worst natural disasters ever recorded. It was 1816. Across the United States, Canada, and most of Europe, something terrifying was happening. The seasons had stopped working. Spring arrived. Then it left. Then snow came back. Then frost. Then snow again. June had blizzards. July had ice storms. August killed every crop in the ground. People called it 1800 and froze to death. Nobody understood what was going on. There were no weather satellites, no scientists tracking global temperatures. One week the sun would peek through. Farmers would rush to plant their seeds. Then the cold would return, and it would kill everything. Entire families had no food. Grain prices exploded. Riots broke out in France. People were starving across 3 continents, and not a single person knew the real reason. The year before, in 1815, a massive volcano called Mount Tambora in Indonesia had erupted. It was one of the biggest volcanic eruptions in recorded human history. The explosion blasted millions of tons of ash and dust into the upper atmosphere. That dust spread around the entire Earth like a giant shield. It blocked out sunlight. For over a year, the world literally lost part of its sun. Tens of thousands of people died from starvation and the diseases that followed. Crops failed across North America, Europe, and Asia. In some regions, it took years to recover. To understand how powerful this was, Mount Tambora released so much energy that it was like dozens of nuclear bombs going off at the same time. Except instead of destroying one city, it quietly suffocated the entire planet's weather system for 12 straight months. Victoria, Australia, January 13, 1939. After weeks of extreme heat and no rain, small fires were already burning across the forests north and east of Melbourne. By midday, winds hit 100 kilometers per hour, and everything changed. Separate fires merged into a single unstoppable firestorm. It jumped fire breaks, leaped across roads, and swallowed entire towns in minutes. The fire moved so fast that the air itself burned before the flames even arrived. Thick black smoke, turning midday into night. Towns that existed in the morning were gone by evening. Nothing left but ash and smoldering timber in every direction. Victoria had been baking for weeks with no rain. Everything was bone dry and waiting to burn. When the winds arrived, small manageable blazes became a monster overnight. The fire changed direction without warning, turning safe ground into a death trap within seconds. Volunteer brigades were spread too thin, with nothing but shovels and buckets to fight with. Over 70 people killed, hundreds injured, tens of thousands of acres destroyed, entire communities gone overnight. Blackened trees standing like skeletons, towns unrecognizable, streets lined with rubble, and chimneys still smoldering where houses had stood hours before. To understand the scale, the fires burned through an area larger than some entire countries in a single day. Some areas took decades to recover. Survivors described hearing the roar before they could see the fire. In a single afternoon, fire consumed nearly 2,000 square miles. Over 400 people were dead before sunrise, northeastern Minnesota, USA, October 12, 1918. Towns like Cloquet, Moose Lake, and Kettle River were going about a normal autumn day. The region had been suffering one of the driest years on record. Small fires had been burning for weeks alongside railway tracks, sparked by hot embers flying from locomotive smokestacks. Nobody paid much attention. Then the winds hit. Gusts above 80 miles per hour turned dozens of small scattered fires into a single unstoppable wall of flame. The town of Brookston was the first to go. Within hours, 36 communities were burning towns reduced to ash, farms wiped clean, forests scorched to bare black trunks stretching as far as the eye can see. This is what an entire region looks like after fire moves through it at 80 miles per hour. 1918 was one of the driest years in Minnesota history. The logging industry had left massive piles of debris and sawdust across the landscape. Railway companies, under wartime pressure, had stopped maintaining ember-catching screens on their locomotives. Hot coals flew out constantly and landed in bone-dry grass alongside the tracks. When the winds arrived, every condition needed for catastrophe was already in place. 453 people killed. Over 100 more died in the following days from flu and pneumonia worsened by smoke inhalation. 52,000 people affected. 4,000 homes destroyed. 1,500 square miles burned foundations where homes had stood. Fields of ash where farms had operated for generations. Survivors described the morning after as an ashen road to nowhere. To understand the scale, the fire burned an area the size of Rhode Island in hours. In one area, 3 families sheltered together in a root cellar. None of them survived. Europe, summer of 2003. France, Italy, Spain, Portugal, Germany, the United Kingdom. These are some of the most developed, modern, wealthy countries in the world. Places with hospitals, doctors, emergency services, advanced technology. None of it was enough. The summer of 2003 arrived and the temperature simply kept climbing. And climbing. Paris hit temperatures it had never recorded in its entire history. Parts of Portugal reached 47 degrees Celsius. In the UK, the temperature broke records that had stood for over 300 years. But here is the thing that made this so deadly. Europe was not prepared for heat. Most homes in Europe had no air conditioning. Most hospitals had no cooling systems. Most elderly people lived alone in small apartments with no ventilation and no one checking on them. The heat came at night too. Normally, even in hot summers, nights cool down. The human body never got a chance to rest. Elderly people across France began dying quietly in their apartments, alone, with the windows shut because the hot air outside felt no better than the hot air inside. For days, nobody noticed. Morgues ran out of space. Refrigerated trucks were brought in to store the bodies. Funeral homes had waiting lists. And still, the heat kept coming. What you're seeing is Europe in the grip of something it had never experienced before. People sleeping in parks because their homes were unbearable. Rivers across the continent shrinking to thin streams. Forests burning across Portugal and Spain. In France, the footage shows overwhelmed hospitals and city streets that look completely empty in the middle of the day. The sun had turned the entire continent into an oven. A massive high-pressure system locked itself over Europe and refused to move. Normally, weather systems shift. Winds bring cooler air. Clouds roll in. Rain falls. But this system just sat there, like a lid on a pot, trapping the heat underneath for weeks on end. Scientists later confirmed that climate change had made this kind of extreme heat event at least twice as likely to happen. The atmosphere had changed, and Europe was not ready for the new rules. More than 70,000 people died across Europe in that single summer. France alone lost around 15,000 lives in just 2 weeks. It became one of the deadliest natural disasters in European history. The Great Plains of the United States, the 1930s, Oklahoma, Texas, Kansas, Colorado. States full of hard-working farming families. For decades, these people had built their lives on this land. They planted crops. They raised children. They believed the earth would always take care of them. They were wrong. It started with drought. The rains stopped coming. The soil dried out. Then the wind came. And the wind did not stop. It picked up the dry, loose dirt from millions of acres of farmland and turned it into something no one had ever seen before. Walls of dust, moving like a living thing, swallowing everything in their path. People called them black blizzards. Some people who got caught outside suffocated. Doctors started seeing a new illness called dust pneumonia. People's lungs were filling with dirt. In some clips, you can see entire towns disappearing in seconds. Cars swallowed by dust drifts, 'cause for years, farmers had plowed up the native grasslands to plant wheat. Those deep wild grasses had held the soil together for thousands of years. Once they were gone, there was nothing anchoring the dirt. Then the drought hit. The topsoil turned to powder, and the winds of the Great Plains had nothing to stop them. Nature did not cause this alone. People helped it happen. Over 3.5 million people were forced to abandon their homes and move west. Entire communities simply ceased to exist. August 15th, 1950. The remote mountains along the border of Assam, India, and Tibet. One of the most isolated, rugged places on Earth. Deep river valleys, towering peaks, dense jungle, villages scattered across mountain slopes with no roads connecting them to the outside world. At 7:39 in the evening, the ground cracked open. A magnitude 8.6 earthquake tore through the Himalayan region, one of the most powerful earthquakes ever recorded in human history. The shaking lasted for several long, terrifying minutes. But the earthquake itself was not the worst part. The worst part came after. The Assam region is a land built on steep mountain slopes and massive rivers. When that earthquake hit, it did not just shake the ground. It shook loose entire mountains. Thousands of landslides triggered all at once. The Brahmaputra River, one of the mightiest rivers in Asia, was buried, blocked. To understand how powerful this earthquake was, the ground displacement was so extreme that rivers in the region permanently changed their courses. The physical shape of that part of India and Tibet was redrawn overnight. A landscape that took millions of years to form was rearranged in minutes, and most of the world never even heard about it. China, 1931. The Yangtze River, the longest river in Asia. A river so massive it stretches nearly 4,000 miles across the heart of China. For thousands of years, hundreds of millions of people had built their lives along its banks. They farmed its floodplains. They fished its waters. They raised their families in its valleys. The river gave them everything, until the year it turned against them. The summer of 1931 brought relentless rain. It did not stop for weeks. The Yangtze River swelled. Then it kept swelling. Then it burst its banks in multiple places at once. And when the Yangtze bursts, it does not trickle over its edges. It explodes. Picture an entire province underwater, not ankle deep, not waist deep, rooftop deep. Entire towns swallowed whole. Rice fields that fed millions of people buried under brown, churning water. Roads gone. The isolation made everything worse. Survivors in one village had no idea if the next village even still existed. Relief teams trying to reach flooded areas found themselves facing more floodwater with no boats and no bridges. And then came what always follows a flood of this scale: disease. Contaminated water spread cholera and typhoid through the surviving population. The Yangtze River Basin receives enormous amounts of rainfall every summer, but 1931 brought something far beyond the normal monsoon season. Weeks of unusually heavy rain fell across the upper portions of the river and its tributaries all at once. Every stream and smaller river feeding into the Yangtze filled beyond capacity at the same time. The river had no choice but to take the land. An estimated 3.7 million people lost their lives, making it one of the deadliest natural disasters in all of human history. Millions more lost their homes, their crops, and everything they had ever owned. 8 storms, 8 nations, hundreds of thousands of lives. Some were unstoppable forces of nature. Some were made far deadlier by failed warnings. Every single one of them left a mark that the survivors carried for the rest of their lives, and every single one of them had one final lesson in common. Nature does not wait, and when it moves, the only thing standing between survival and disaster is whether someone was ready. If you made it to the end of this video, drop a comment below telling us which of these 8 disasters shocked you the most.